Hey guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Hattie Boydle on the show. For the first time solo, Hattie is a world champion physique competitor, coach, and educator. In this episode, we dive deep into the world of competitive physique sports, personal growth, and the power of self-leadership. Hattie has an incredible journey from overcoming anorexia to becoming a top natural bodybuilder. We'll explore how she stays disciplined yet adaptable while traveling, her thoughts on tracking macros and meal plans, and then Hattie will share some insights on self-leadership, the importance of seeking validation from within, and how she handles the natty or not accusations, and much more. As a reminder, guys, I can only get such amazing guests with your help. Please do subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss future episodes, and give us a high rating on whatever podcast platform that you're on. And if you can, share the episode with anyone you think might like it, and please across social media and tag me and Hattie, that would be amazing. However, without further ado, let's dive into the incredible, enriching conversation with the incredible Hattie. So Hattie, something I've always admired you for is because you're obviously a very competitive physique competitor. You take it very seriously. You have very large goals, and you also, though, and across social media, you travel, you share things. You were recently in Rome. And so I'd love to hear from someone who is as disciplined and competitive as you are, how you stay adaptable in different environments.
I really like this question, Steve. And, I think flexibility is something that we learn over time. I think we have to be rigid before we become flexible. And when I think of consistency is adaptability. Now, I've been tracking my nutrition for nearly 2 decades, like 18 years. And for most of that, it's been pretty damn consistently. And that's just because I purely enjoy tracking my nutrition. I'm a very good eater, Steve. What I mean by that is I can eat a lot. And so I often look at tracking my nutrition as my ball and chain. It's a thing that keeps me, in check, because just like anyone else and everyone else, I can overeat. And so when I went to Rome, I chose to practice just self-awareness, which I think is the missing thing for a lot of people. We use tools like tracking our nutrition or even meal plans as a tool so that later in life or in some time in our life, we can, be able to get through life and maintain our weight without having to track. It's not something that we should be ruled by, but something that we should learn from. And so while we're tracking our nutrition, the ultimate goal over here should be that I don't have to need this thing later on, that I can make my own informed decisions. I have a level of self-awareness of how much food I can kind of eat by picking, my macro, like my protein, my fats and carbs, and making it work. So if anyone was following me on social media, one day I had a protein shake and gelato for lunch. Not optimal, I know that, but it was just what I wanted to do that day. And I knew that I had, a certain amount of calories that I could hit or stay within, a certain amount of fats, carbs, proteins. And so that was my choice for the day, knowing that in a few hours' time, I'm probably going to be really hungry, and my next meal is going to be high in micronutrients, choosing a salad, probably went a lower carb or shared a pasta, which I think is what I did, and then had a protein-based meal. So I also knew that I was going to be walking around, and there is still a level of preparation in what I do and where I go, and just for the week ahead. So it wasn't like blindly in the blind, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Every meal I sat down to eat, I calculated in my head, like how much of what I'm going to eat. I was able to eyeball and guesstimate roughly how much protein, fats, and carbs I was going to be consuming for that meal. And most of the time I would have 3 meals instead of 4, because the meals that I was having, especially around the wedding and around the events, and I actually didn't know how much food was going to be given to me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be conservative at breakfast, knowing that lunch and dinner is probably going to be bigger meals. And then I didn't eat what wasn't great, so I don't know about anyone else. Sometimes we just eat things and we go, that was shit. And then we're like, oh, shouldn't have eaten that. I really wanted to be conservative with my approach in the way that I was like, I want to enjoy the foods that I'm really enjoying, and I'm just going to leave the ones that I don't like so much to the side. And, one of my goals was just to come back weight stable. And I did. And I didn't really plan on training that week either. So I just left it as a non-training week. I think I got two sessions in towards the back end. And I just really wanted to be present that week and really enjoy exploring and being with friends and dancing, and ate pasta every day. And that's just not something I do back home, not because I don't eat pasta. I just am very rigid when I'm home because I just think about what is easy, what do I know, what eliminates time in the kitchen, and what eliminates decision fatigue when it comes to my food.
I really love that answer. I think it's such a mature position to be in regards to, you probably heard the analogy. I don't know who initially came up with it, kind of looking at nutrition like a dimmer switch. So it's like you're never off and you're very rarely fully on. You can kind of dim it like you were kind of when you're in Rome and on holiday and being a bit more free, and then turn it back on once you're home. You can have the structure, you can be in full control, and you're making those choices. I think that's just a great example of it. And also, again, it's that kind of thought of you're never fully off in regards to like food choices. You mentioned having a protein shake and gelato, but then planning, hey, the next meal, I know I've got to be more sensible with that. Otherwise, like you said, you can eat. So if you don't have high fiber, lots of fruit and veg or something, your appetite's going to get out of control. It's going to be easy for you to go off track. So you're already thinking about like a step ahead almost.
Yeah, I think we always feel better when we have a level of organization or even a level of structure or routine. And just in the way I said, consistency is adaptability, structure and routine should also be adaptability, right? Rigid is the thing I think that messes with us when it's like, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like this. And it pigeonholes you into this very small way of thinking versus it's like structure. If we think about structure or we look at a rubber band, right? It's flexible, but it's still very strong. And so if you can have a flexible approach to how you might structure your day, your meals, your week, that is by far going to give you a better outcome and more longevity and sustainability in achieving whatever your body composition goals. Because I really feel like rigidity in times of travel ruins things. There is a time and a place to be perfect. There's a time and a place where rigid might be what is needed. And that's when we're at home. We practice perfection in perfect environments, knowing that that's what we can achieve. But we do the best that we can in outside environments. And something that I always teach clients, and I have a rule for myself, is I don't let the environment control me. I work on controlling my environment. And that's more like my internal resources. I work on controlling myself and I do the best that I can. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. I think perfection robs the idea of good or good enough. And sometimes good enough is what it's got to be. And I think that moves us away. And that, as you spoke to, I always think shifting gears. We've got 4 gears and we can shift them from time to time. And sometimes it's gear 4 and we're on, right? And we go for it, but we can't always live in gear 4. Sometimes we've got to bring it back down and be able to cruise or idle or pull back so that we can continue in the direction that we want to go.
Again, really well said. I always think about that with structure and kind of routine and things, and they're brilliant and they drive results, but they're no good if they can't be adaptable or flexible, because that's not a sustainable approach. Like, life happens and things have take place. And again, you mentioned meal plans. And if someone is like, no, I have my foods, it's my meal plan. If anything ever gets, I don't know, one of your meals goes off. Oh, what can I do in this situation? They just go, screw it. I'm just gonna, I don't know, eat whatever's within the office. Or you can think, hey, I know it's this number of macros. I don't know, there's a Subway outside. I can go get a Subway salad and pick some lean meats, and it basically makes up this meal. So I think your words there are of a place of, I guess, experience. Were you always this good? Did it take quite a bit of time to get to this point?
Oh my God, Steve, when I first started in the industry, and I almost love sharing my mistakes because I think people are scared, just to ask questions because they might be wrong, or sometimes we don't want to know that we're not where we want to be. And when I first started in the industry, I did the best I could with the skills and the education that I had at the time. But I was also limited by my own internal limitations on and rules around food. So I used to have, back in high school, I had a really bad eating disorder. So I've had every bad habit of food under the sun. I've given myself every rule you could probably possibly think about with food. And it got to a point where I was like, don't really want to live like this anymore. So I had to learn not to be on and off and on and off. That switch that you talked about, I'm like, no, I had to learn that it wasn't on off. It was learning to do the best that I can. It was learning to be able to shift gears and be able to have a flexible approach and include all food groups and learn to not use this tool to be ruled by, which is something that we often hear about in the industry. Flexible dieting or tracking your meals often gets a bad rap when it's seen as obsessive. Now, something I always talk about is, well, that's someone's experience that they're sharing with you. Someone's experience for tracking their food may have been obsessive for them. But for me, learning to track my food was something that gave me freedom. In fact, that was the thing that showed me I can eat it all. It's not bad. I just have to learn how to, I called it food Tetris, how to make it work. How could I could incorporate meals that I enjoyed eating. I used to joke that I could eat a block of chocolate in 2.1 seconds. I remember one day I was sitting there and I was just eating this chocolate. And my boyfriend said to me at the time, "Did you even chew that?" And I stopped and I was so embarrassed because it was the thing that I would be on or off with. And I love chocolate. Like I eat chocolate every day. And then I'd feel so guilty about it because I couldn't eat it in a moderate I had a really bad relationship with it. And then I would cut out all these food groups and then I would eat them. And then I couldn't learn to have a healthy relationship with them. So for me, tracking my nutrition and learning to make informed decision, learning about my nutrition. Oh, there's that much carbs in that, there's that much protein in that. I need this much protein every day. Wow, I need this many vegetables. I can include this much fruit. Like it educated me. And with that education, with that information, I learned to apply it. And it's that information and application, those things together, which ultimately moves us forward. And so I didn't always have a healthy relationship with food. I didn't always have a healthy relationship with my body. I had to learn these things just like most of us. And I also had to learn that this tool of tracking my nutrition was something that I didn't want to be ruled by. I wanted to have freedom with. And so I would use certain times in the year, like when I'd go on holiday, and I'd say, okay, I'm not going to track my food, but I'm going to have a level of self-awareness. And my goal would be to get back weight stable. If I was traveling in preps, which I did so often, I would track my nutrition, but I would still eat out. And so not only did this tool give me the body that I wanted, it also allowed me to live the life that I wanted. I could be social, I could make better choices, and I could come home knowing that I did the best that I could. But just like everyone else, I'm human, and there are times when I overeat. And then I could make a decision. Did I want to pull back the next day, or did I just want to close that down and go, you know what, I'm going to do better tomorrow? Because there's pros and cons to that way of being as well, Steve. As we know, it's like, do we just call it a day and try and be better? Or do we, are you in a competition prep, or you've got a photo shoot coming up, and, those calories do really count in this position. So we need to deduct them from a couple of days.
Yeah, I like that process. It sounds very familiar to my own in regards to kind of coming from being very restrictive, good and bad foods. And I just had to remove the kind of quote unquote bad ones from my life. And then I came across like if it fits your macros and flexible dieting. And I probably went down too extreme a route with that, where I was trying to fit in like a tub of Ben Jerry's at night or something. And the rest of my day just looked like the worst concoction of meals. And then you get to a point of like, actually, I can just have like a couple of scoops of that. And that's enough. I don't need to, you get to this kind of balance with things. And I think that's normal. I think some people will hear your initial kind of discussion about how you were in Rome and how you think about your nutrition. And they might hear me talk about it and think, I can't do that. But I think they forget, like you said, how long it took us to kind of get to this point of using this tool skillfully, where you have to kind of go through some discomfort and getting things wrong.
I think we learn our best lessons from our mistakes. And just as you named so beautifully, it's like you were here and then you went over here. You were all or nothing, or like good and bads, then rigid, and then you went too flexible. And I think we kind of almost have to learn that. Like we've got to go down the path and go, oh, okay, maybe I'm being too flexible. And I think as we get older, And maybe as we mature in the way of our training age and what we want for ourselves, and as we start to cultivate the vision that we have for ourselves and who we want to be, we start to kind of look at the areas of our life that we can make the biggest and quickest changes in. And whether we like to know it or not, nutrition has one of the biggest impacts on our overall being. And I'm not just talking from a health standpoint, I'm talking about just how we feel in general. And what's hard about food is we have these layers, right? We have environmental, we have religious, we have the things that we like, and then we have a relationship with them, what we call good, bad, healthy, clean, all that kind of stuff. And so we have this push and pull of all these different things in our system of like, well, we want to go out and be social, but then we don't want to eat. And then we've got these goals, and then they combat these goals. And then we've got, religion where we might have, or like family and culture where, we're known to eat all this food. And then when you don't want to do it, it's like this, you get frowned upon. And then, again, the good, bad and labeling food. And so we're constantly in this tug of war of making it work. And I think that's happens a lot with all of us in some different way. We're just kind of learning, how do we navigate all these things throughout life? And you have to make the mistakes, I think, to learn the lesson. And then our idea of balance changes over time. And then we have that thing that always throws a spanner in the works, which is all the information that we hear on the internet, which conflicts each other, and and people that we look to for information, they often conflict with other things as well. So learning how to understand, or even, read the research on what is actually true and what's not. Thank God we've got some great educators that we are exposed to on the internet that also, get challenged. It's quite a tricky thing to navigate.
Yeah, for sure. And I can see why, especially in our, you may see it more than even I do. I don't know, because I think you're surrounded by some very elite in the space, and I can see why they kind of have found their way that works. Maybe it is sticking to a meal plan, and like they don't track macros, and they just go like, yeah, I just remove some rice and that gets me leaner and things, because it kind of avoids the confusion. It's kind of similar to like, I just train to failure because reps in reserve and thinking about another variable just that maybe puts a spanner in the works, makes it a bit more confusing. Whereas if I just follow this kind of strict line, I know if I'm training hard enough, black and white, I know if I follow these foods, it gets me lean or whatever. And it kind of removes that. But I think those people potentially miss out on kind of the freedom of, like, people might look at you, especially other competitors, and be like, oh, Hattie's like going out and she's eating meals out while she's on holiday. Whereas I'm more dedicated. I'm going to have my meal at home, whatever it is. But I think it's great that you do that, because I think you're not doing that from a space of thinking this is going to make me worse. You're thinking actually going out and being social and having that kind of, I can do this in a stress-free way that's going to promote me to be even better at this. I think, if that makes sense. Yeah, you don't feel like you're being a bad person or a bad competitor by going and have those meals out.
I think it's important. If anyone's listening and you're competitors, you're a competitor, or even you're on this journey, I think one of the greatest things that you'll ever learn is when to push and when to pull back. Like, what tends to happen when we start on this journey of bodybuilding, which we're all doing, whether you compete or not, if you're building your body, you're a bodybuilder, is that, again, we go so one-dimensional and we start to lose play. But we forget that we are a whole human, right? And if we look at, I always like to think of like pie charts, and we have all these different human needs in different areas of our life. And when we minimize one too much, it makes us very dull or feel like not complete. And so you do have the capacity, and you should, to have times where you play. You are social. I'm sure you have a relationship. Your partner might understand what you do. You know what's important for that relationship? To go do something together. And we often do it around food. And we should learn the skill set of of how to make it work, whether it is pre-planned into your week, or it's, you just go out and you choose to have a level of self-awareness of going, this is what I can handle within what I think, is in my calories and my meal plan. And you just choose to do that. My whole career as an athlete, which has been 13 or 14 years, I always had a period in the year where I'd go on holiday and I would back off training and I would go out and I'd drink alcohol. And it was such a small part of the year, because the rest of the year, it was game on. It was, I'm training 5 days a week. I've got a heavy barbell on my back. Like, that was a priority. But in order for me to excel in those areas, either side, I just needed a little pocket of play, because I have friends and I had a partner, and my friends and partners were not in the industry. My partner now is in the industry, but he also likes play. And so I actually think for longevity and just our spirit, we need levels of play, and play for everyone is different. It might be just a cards game, with the boys, or, you go out playing golf or whatever. You just go out dancing, karaoke, just something that takes you out of this really intense environment, which is bodybuilding, because it's meaningful to you. But we have to remind ourselves that we are more than just this thing here. And so having these levels of relieving a little bit of the tension or having a little bit of play is actually far better for your soul. Because let me tell you, when I got back from Italy, I had the best time, but I was damn ready to get back into the gym and to track my nutrition. And it was perfect from the get-go. And so that little week where I didn't undo any hard work, but I let my soul feel a sense of relief. I had some freedom, spontaneity, right? I went off my usual guidelines, and it felt good, because it was only for a week and I didn't do all or nothing. And I still had a level of self-awareness, which I think for a lot of us, if we can just improve our level of self-awareness, again, we'll improve everything that we do, because it doesn't start with thinking positively. It starts with, what's my location and what skill set do I have, and how do I use that to my advantage?
I love that framing of pushing and pull. I think that makes so much sense. I think it's something I often think about. Like, the best athletes aren't just the ones who can train the hardest. They're also the ones who are self-aware enough to be able to know when to kind of pull back. So that is that case of, I don't know, if you need to take a few days off the gym because you're like grinding yourself into the dirt. If you continue to grind yourself into the dirt, you're just seeing regression, you're seeing injuries, you're getting worse. Whereas if you can pull back to then take a step back to take 2 steps forward, that's even better. So like you said, if you need that full or whatever period of time where you just kind of switch off from being a competitor and you're quote unquote normal, whatever people want to kind of say there. And that then buys you an entire year of just like hardcore, like switched on Hattie. Whereas if someone doesn't do that, they're not able to be as on top of things or they can't train as hard and they can't focus. And they're making compensations through the year. Whereas if they just put a time to it where they could actually enjoy it, they're going to get the best of everything. And that's going to look different for everyone. Like, again, like you said, everyone's a bodybuilder who's listening to this, but if you're not as competitive as say you, it might be that they have several holidays across the year or weekends or whatever it is, where they get a bit more of that semblance of balance for them. And I think people hate the word balance, right? But I think it's just, it's in the context for the person is what matters. Like, your and my balance looks very different to someone who's not in the field and they're not a competitor, for example.
I always say, we're never in balance, we're always balancing. And I think of, a juggler. It's like, you see them just like trying to juggle these balls. And I feel like that's life. Like, because sometimes there's so much going on that balance is, to someone else, it's just like, what we do to most people is either obsessive or, it's just way too much. And that's also okay. But that's what we choose to do. And I think, as I've gotten older as well and different priorities, I say periodize your priorities the way you periodize your effort, because there's times in our life where career is going to take more from you than what bodybuilding will, but you're not going to let bodybuilding go. It's just, you're going to do the maintenance for that. And I always love, like, I think bodybuilding can teach us so much about different analogies in life. Especially with discomfort. Like we always say, we grow in discomfort. The only way we grow muscle is when we are doing those hard reps, which people most likely want to avoid, instead of how do I get into the hard reps and then do as many hard reps as I can. Not many people are going, give me the challenge so I can I can be uncomfortable for a long period of time. But it just depends on what we want to achieve at different times in our life. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think learning to do the minimum effective dose or maintenance dose for different things in our life, whether it's your nutrition, bodybuilding, or your career, is, again, a far better place to practice than just letting, that all or nothing thing, especially when it comes to nutrition, which happens when people get stressed. It's like, oh, it's too hard. It's like, that actually gives you more stress than what you would if you still put in some organization and pre-planning in your nutrition, because nutrition is taxing emotionally and physically when we're not honoring it, because it's the thing that gives us the most, I guess, damage, but also the most reward when it comes to our overall well-being.
Something you mentioned already, Hattie, was your, I guess, period. I don't know if you actually named it, but obviously you had anorexia when you were younger. You've spoken about this a bit publicly, and hearing you talk about how there was kind of I think there was just a point of which where you're like, I can't do this anymore. And you were able to then recover out of it. I think that just like competitive bodybuilders, people who don't do that competitively can learn from it. I think people who struggle with their nutrition don't need to have had anorexia to learn from your story. So I'd love to hear about how did you kind of break away from anorexia. And I think also it was interesting to hear that you kind of framed it positively. What skill sets have you maintained that you kind of developed during anorexia?
I recently spoke about this at an event at Clean Health, and I have so much to thank for that time in my life. Like, I don't wish anyone to go through that. It is awful. But I honestly don't think I would appreciate my body the way I do now without really understanding what the hell it is it can go through. We greatly underestimate our body's ability to adapt under the stress that we put it through. And I only have myself, like my body, to thank. And the biggest thing that got me out of it was I remember just being like, I can't, because I was in hospital. I hate being told what to do unless I've asked for help. And I was just being told what to do all the time. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And the other one was, I was like, I'm here by choice, not by chance. And it was like this moment of, oh my God, what the hell have I done? Like, what have I done to myself? And I thought, well, if I can use this same energy, like this same drive, this same discipline to do something powerful, like I could make something really great. And I also realized, like, I looked around at the women around me and I was like, oh my God, you are not strong enough to suffer, but I am. And these girls had been in and out of hospital for 7 years. And I just thought to myself, fuck that, get me out of here. And I wanted to help women. Like that was the catalyst for me being a part of the fitness industry. Was like, how do I help these women? And I had to lead myself first. So one of the pivotal moments of my life where it was like, you need to get educated and you need to learn how to do this the healthy way so you can teach others how to do it, was self-leadership. Doing what I said I would do. And that was like a really hard moment, because it's like, now you have to break down all the rules that you've told yourself that you're living by and start to abide by the rules that you're telling other people what to do. And that was a really powerful moment for me. I work with some great people in the industry, like Lane Norton. I only recently told him, how much of an impact he had on my life at that time, learning how to do flexible dieting. Like I said, it gave me freedom. I got educated. I could make informed decisions. I realized that these rules or these things that I was telling myself in my mind, they were just things that I'd made up. It was just misinformation. And then I ran with that. And so that gave me freedom. Strength training with Sebastian Oram, being focused on being strong versus just what I looked like. Again, these two really powerful tools that I, owe so much of my career to, and just so much of my relationship to myself to, really were really big game changers for me. And so whenever I talk about my anorexia, I don't want to talk about anorexia, but I want to talk about the recovery side. And for anyone, if anyone is listening and they're struggling with their food or their body image issues, and you're scared to recover, because that actually happens. Life happens in recovery. Like, life is so much greater when you look at yourself and you go, okay, I've got this vessel. What can I do with it? If I love it, if I nurture it, if I support it, if I feed it, if I let it recover so it can grow, so it can be better, what could I create with myself? And what I said to you off camera before was like, if you told me that I was going to look like this when I was 17 years old, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have known what I was capable of doing. But I also knew that I was going to be a hard worker no matter what. And so, of course, I was going to eventually look like this because I put in so much work. And so I think it's very easy to stay limited. It's very easy to hit your head on the ceiling. And I think for a lot of us, maybe you can relate to this, Steve, and I think you probably can. Maybe when you first started training, you probably used, bullying or negative self-talk as your way of getting you to do something. And so it worked the first time. Of course, it's going to work the second time. Of course, it's going to work the third time. But eventually, that negative self-talk becomes the ceiling. And you're going to keep bumping your head. You're going to be like, why aren't I progressing? Why do I still feel this way? And it's because the tool that we used to work doesn't work anymore. It's got to change. It's that thing of the seed in the healthy garden. When you water it, it grows. When it gets sunlight, it grows. Like the same. We're not that different when it comes to our own self-development. And so while negative self-talk may have had a role at some point in your life, it's going to be your biggest limitation. You have to learn compassion and to love yourself and go like, again, I had like an out-of-body experience of like, I love you. Like, I'm so sorry. You have taken a beating, but I'm going to do something great with you. And now when I look at my physique, I'm like, how do I keep improving? Like, I'm not done yet. I feel like I'm just scratching at the surface. And you become smarter with your approach. It's train hard and smart, not just train smarter. We need a combination of both. And then we also have to make sure that there's recovery in there, which I think is the piece that a lot of people miss. And I certainly missed in the beginning. It wasn't till I started having days off that I actually got more out of my body, that I actually was able to get stronger, fitter, faster, grow muscle, even get leaner. And so I think that, again, it's like as we mature with our training, we hope that we start to do things a little bit better.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about your anorexia that way, because I think you probably could have taken the brand Revive Stronger because it applies to your story so well as well. The name came from my background and my injury, and then I found bodybuilding and it kind of revived me stronger. I was the fittest and best in the best health I could ever have been after having had my accident. And then that led me down the path similar to you, to wanting to help other people, because I was like, wow, if I could have been at like ground zero, similar in a different context, but similar in terms of my body's health and like wasn't in a good place, and I could have brought it to the best shape of my life within a period of time through controlling nutrition, training in a productive way. Even back then, it wasn't the best way, but it was better than where it was. I was like, man, the body is unbelievably adaptable, and with the right kind of inputs, like you said, you water it correctly, you give it sunlight, just like a seed, it's going to flourish.
We greatly underestimate our potential. And I think about this all the time. I'm like, man, people really underestimate what they can do when they apply nutrition and training correctly over time. And that is including the sleep and the recovery, which is the thing that I think most of us miss, the thing that we underestimate the most, and it comes for free. It's interesting that all the things that come for free, we really underestimate. And our bodies are meant to be, amazing machines. We're meant to use them, and we're meant to put them under stress. And I think if you are in the right environment and you've got great guidance, which I think is really important that you tune into, like, who are you being guided by? What information are you absorbing? Because environment isn't just who we're around, it's what we're listening to, especially when we spend so much time on our phone. You want to make sure that the environment that you're in is the one that is encouraging you to grow, and encouraging you to be open, with your thoughts and hear things and critically think, which I think is not something that a lot of people tend to do these days, because we're just reacting to so much information that is coming at us, and it can be so confusing. Like, I take my hat off to people who are new in the industry, people who are new to starting their path, and you've just got all this information coming at you, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, where do I start, and who do I listen to? And the craziest thing is we have so many amazing educators at our fingertips right now. Yet there's still so much misinformation out there, which is hard to shift through at times.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for, I think the first experience I got was, I think it's the bodybuilding forums. That's where I found Alan Aragon was over there. And initially I came from, like I said, that kind of good and bad food, like old school bodybuilding kind of thoughts. I don't know if that's where I got it from, but I was part of this forum. I was on a separate forum where it's kind of like looking at foods.
Bodybuilding.com and
yeah, it was looking at these things that way. And when I first came across it, I was like, oh, like they were talking about if it fits your macros and things. I was like, there's just no way. And I really wasn't happy about it. And then I was like, maybe they're talking some sense here. Maybe I'll try it. And then obviously I came across La McDonald and bodyrecomposition.com and started reading all of this. And it just all just made sense. But I think it's so easy for a lot of the misinformation can make sense too. Even at the moment, it's wild to me that like the insulin hypothesis of why we gain weight and how carbs are bad and how we have to keep insulin low through the day, that is like huge news. There's influencers with 3 million followers plus that are kind of touting this and talking about good and bad foods. And it's so scary to me in this day and age. This wasn't a route I was intending to necessarily go down, but it's one that I keep finding myself coming to and talking to, especially for people like yourself, Hattie. You're big on social media, and so you're seeing it too. And I don't even know how you battle that sort of content. I don't know if you have any feelings or thoughts surrounding it, apart from it's the frustration.
the first thing I'm going to say is I'm so grateful I'm not on TikTok, because I heard that's even worse than Instagram.
Yeah, I'm not there either.
The thing I think about, Steve, is a person is our greatest influence. And so what we put out there is important. Like when I think about the information put out there, I'm like, there's a duty of care here. And for some people, they don't give a shit. They don't have duty of care. And I think the thing I always remember is everything works when it's applied. So whatever diet method they're putting on, if that person's in a calorie deficit, they're going to lose weight, but they're not going to say it's a deficit. They're going to say it's because of this. It's because I didn't do carbs. It's because I managed my insulin levels. It's because of the only thing that it really truly was it was a calorie deficit. And, some people are like, oh, if you're still saying calorie deficit, grow up. And it's like, well, that is important. But then the other part is, your micro and macronutrients are important, but there's so much missing context on the internet. And again, it's clickbait. So they're just trying to get, no one has the capacity anymore to listen to long form content, which means that you're picking the one thing that's going to catch someone versus the rest of the stuff that's going on. That's why, YouTube is great now because it's long form content. Podcasts are great because they're long form content. Someone told me the other day, because he's like, your caption's too long. I was like, I'm not talking to you. You're not my target audience. If you're just here for photos, like, I'm not talking to you. But someone who's sitting here and reading, who actually wants to learn, I'm talking to them. And I think that's, again, when it comes to people with big followings, it's often not because their content is great. It's because it's short. And it sucks because, unfortunately, with people with 3 million followers, most of the time they don't give a shit. They just care about the likes or if it's going to make them money versus, is this actually good and relevant and evidence-based information that I'm now sharing with the public and the people that are following me. Not many people really care about that, unfortunately. And that's why I said it's a wild, wild west out there. And so it's hard because, especially if someone is of influence to you and they're sharing something, then of course it makes it much, much easier for you to be like, yeah, this is true. So yeah, unfortunately the internet's not policed. So
how, for you, Hattie, do you ever get drawn into like the Instagram algorithm and do you try and like play that game, or do you just, how
No.
what's your approach to social media?
You know what? My relationship with Instagram or social media has definitely changed a lot this year. But something that I've never done is look at the algorithm, because I just haven't. That's why I've never done short form content. I've always done long form content. I post whenever it comes. Sometimes I don't post for days. I think it's too obsessive in a way. Like, yes, I understand it has its pros because it builds your profile. But does it translate into more people wanting to work with you? I don't know. I just haven't really, for me, I haven't been able to capture or like get into short form content because I feel like I'm robbing people of getting all the information in. And then I just realized that I don't want to do this for other people. I did Instagram, and I started Instagram as a journal originally. I just wanted to show people what I was doing because I was really proud of what I was doing back in 2014 when I started with Sebastian Oreb. I just won my pro card. I started like lifting, 100, like triple digits on my back as like a 55 kilo fitness model. Like no one was doing that. And I was really proud. And so I just started it to be a journal. I share my thoughts. I'm pretty vulnerable on social media, and I share a bit of information, a bit of motivation, things that I'm doing, things that are meaningful to me. And I'm just lucky that I've built some really wonderful supporters, and I've been able to, grow my business with that. But it hasn't been my main priority to make money, or my main priority to be, to be famous or anything like that. I want to be successful, but my idea of successful isn't fame. It's how many people can I help? How many people can I be of influence to? How many people can I maybe help think differently to improve their life? I don't have to work with them directly to help them. I put out so much information for free. I message absolutely everyone unless they're a creep or they've insulted me. If you've asked me a question and I found it in my outbox or inbox, I message you back because I feel like that's my duty of care. That's one of my levels of, that's something I always said, that is what I want to do. But I've never looked at social media and been like, this is my life. In fact, most recently, I'm like, how do I spend less time on here? Because I don't want to live my life through this anymore. And I think social media has changed the way we are social in a non-healthy way.
It's really refreshing to hear you talk about it that way. I think it's something I battle with myself. Like, do I want to play with the algorithm or do I want to not? And like, I don't know, keep up to date with the trends and what's working. And obviously I want to grow and help more people, but also it's like, are you doing it in a way that's going to do that or not? So I have kind of I think I have my like barriers of what I'm happy to kind of go down and things that I'm not. Like I might use a bit of a controversial opinion and then give some context in the caption, but I'm not going to just say something that I know is completely wrong just because I know it's going to spike loads of views or something, So I really respect that you haven't even worried about that. And maybe that's like fortunate because you've got to a good amount of growth and so you can do that. But I think it sounds like you would hold on to that quite a lot anyway. And I agree with you. I find myself wanting to spend less and less time on social media, which it's a hard one because I also appreciate it. I'm sure you do. Like you have a great audience on there and so do I. But, and it's for our business, it's important because that's like our marketing, it's organic marketing for most things. But at the same time, it can take away from your personal life and environment and things you're doing elsewhere. So even small things like leaving my phone for my dog's morning walk. And I've started to actually leave my phone at home and be like, I can't trust myself. Otherwise I'll just be on my phone the whole time scrolling.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing, I think. What's Yeah, sometimes you catch yourself and you're on your phone, you're like, oh my God, I'm on there. You're like, that wasn't meant to happen. But I have a rule as well. Like when I go out for my first morning walk, I'll put a podcast on, but I don't check my Instagram. I don't check my messages, because I'm like, I just need this time to think clearly before anyone else can disrupt, my brain. And all the neuroscience tells us that as soon as you go on your phone in the morning, it changes the dopamine. It spikes the dopamine levels. And then for the rest of the day, all you're doing is chasing that dopamine. Um, so I think like the more information that comes out about our phone, like I think it's great and we can do what we can to use it. I love my phone when I spend less time on it. I love social media when I spend less time on it. But I also, like I said, I like to respond to everyone. And if I do like a post or like a Q&A throughout my social media, like I'm responding to and I get overwhelmed, but then I'm like, and it's just like, it's this love. It's a love-hate relationship because there's so many great things about it. There's so many great information that we can look at, or so many beautiful conversations. But there's, like everything, there's also a dark side. There's an ugly side because we're exposed to everyone and everything. And, something that I've learned most recently, Steve, is, there was a saying that I grew up with, and it was, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. But the internet is, if you have something to say, it seems that you just say it with no thought on how that might impact someone else. And I think that's the danger of social media. It can be used for something so great. We can use it to be motivated and inspired by and see what other wonderful people are doing in the world, meeting people. But it can also be used as a pretty nasty place, which is why I think cleaning up your environment and who you follow and what you're exposed to is really important, because it impacts you, because you are spending a lot of time in your day. And I think if most people spent more time working on the things that they are passionate about and have purpose on than watching other people do what they say they're passionate about, they would be far more ahead of where they are right now. But we just spend so much time watching others. And I think that's detrimental.
I completely agree. I think, unfortunately, social media and the comments there are so often negative. I've actually had it twice now. I've reacted to two different posts, whereas basically some guys who were sharing like their natural progress. Let me explain. So they're like sharing their natural progress, like it came up in my like reels, and I was like, oh, why is this exploded? Like this guy's like, he's just 2 years deep. He looks pretty normal, like what I'd expect. I look in the comments, I'm like, yeah, it's everyone going like, you look like crap or whatever, like you're clearly natural, or like whatever it is, like negative feedback to this person. Or like there was a first time competitor, and again he looked like, for a first timer, fine, like it's a first timer, like he's just getting on stage, he hit some good poses, needed more condition, clearly more muscle mass would be great. But I go in there and I'm like, everyone's so negative. And so I did some reactions just being like, what the hell, guys, like we should be encouraging and being positive. But you just know some people will be more likely to say negative things than positive things, unfortunately, on social media. So it's, and like you said, people don't think about the person on the other side. You wouldn't say it to someone's face, but you'll say it behind like a phone.
Oh yeah. Some of the comments I get, I'm like, would you come up to me and say that in front of me, especially when I'm with my partner? I highly doubt it. And that's the part that I think, I'm never going to respond to you. Why? Like, obviously it makes them feel good about it, but I'm just like, this is just, social media has changed the way we're social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something we were talking about previously, and I think this would be a great topic for you to talk about, is obviously kind of thinking about how powerful the human body is, and how far you've taken your physique from like when you're anorexic to now. Like you see your before and afters, it's just like mind blown. It's kind of completely crazy, because you're all the way at like your quote unquote worst to the best your physique could be. Like you're maxing like your natural potential essentially. And so one of the topics I did want to talk about is, first, what have you ever actually considered, and I'm sure you have, because I think most of us have who have been in the competitive natural space, going enhanced? What kept you natural? And then we can kind of go on from there.
So I'll answer, which one will I answer first? I'll answer the first one first, I guess. So it's an interesting thing. I recently watched one of my very good friends go enhanced. And I looked at her progression in such a short time and I thought, whoa. And I just said to my partner's enhanced. And I just thought, fuck. Like, to see it so close with someone so close to me, like, just, and she'd already been training for a long time and already had a beautiful physique. And she just, yeah. And the progression from like her first year competing to second was just like mind blowing. And I thought, fuck me, that took me 5 years to do. Her 1 year progression took me 5 years. And I just thought, oh my God. But then I always think it's such a, that feeling is like that short fleeting dream. You know, it's like, what are the consequences? I don't know what the hell is going to happen to my body. You don't get to pick what happens, you know, and I think once the damage is done, you can't reverse those things. And I look at my physique, like I said, if you told me what I was going to look like 18 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I probably actually wouldn't have wanted to look the way I look now, but when I, you know, hit the stage, because I wasn't interested in muscle then. But I'm so proud. Like, and this is, I honestly, I do a prep and I'm like, especially since 2018, like 2016, I remember I was like, I've made it. That was the year I won the world. But I look at my 2016 physique and I look at my 2022 was my favorite physique. That was just before I got the disc injury. And I think, whoa, like, even now, like, can I say, I'm like, I am so proud. I've worked so hard for that. And so the years, even up to that, I'd be like, I just don't need to. I just don't need to. I just don't need to. I just never had needed to. It's funny because my boyfriend went down my Instagram and there was like a photo between 2015, 2016, 2017. And someone wrote under there, are we meant to be impressed by this? And the thing was, there was very minimal changes from 2016, no, 2017, 2015, 2016, 2017. There was very minimal changes because it's natural. So, like, are you meant to be impressed? Well, I don't know. Like, I was impressed. I saw my changes because I fucking work for that. And that's the thing, year to year, my changes are so minimal. But over 6 years, or let's say over 8 years now, you bet there's some fucking changes. And I'd hope there would, because I have spent so much time trying to progress, and year to year they're minimal, but over that time frame they looks like so much. And so the reason I've never is because when I first started bodybuilding and I first started competing, I said to myself, I'm going to show you what you can do naturally. That was my ultimate goal. I'd been a gymnast for 9 years prior. I was just so super competitive. I was really proud and still am, like, to be natural. I was like, I'm so proud of myself. And then, you know, as I got better and better, I was just like, I just didn't need to. And that's kind of been the thing that says, like, I don't need to. And, you know, a part of me and my friends go, God, I just love to see what you could do. And it's like, yeah, that's a fleeting thought. Like, yeah, I probably all my weak points that I've been tirelessly working on, they're probably like, you know, improve a lot. But there's a consequence to that. And my mum would also be so upset with me. And again, you know, like, I'm just really proud of what I do. All my clients that I coach, they're all natural. If someone wants to come to me and they're enhanced, I can't take them on. I don't know what to do with you. Like, I'm not the right person. And so, you know, it actually really hurts more so these days than ever has before, when people accuse me of being natural, of lying. And I'm like, I know who I am. I know what I've achieved. I know why I don't do it. And I'm like, I've been doing this, like, I've been weight training for 18 years. Before that, I was an elite gymnast for 9 years. Like, I've spent 27 years out of my 35 years of being alive training for something. And, you know, it's funny because people will be like, well, her face has changed. I'm like, you try being 7% body fat and see what happens to your face. You don't necessarily look like you anymore. Like you lose all the fat everywhere. And so it's such an interesting thing of like what people believe is what they see. And, when people first, like even 2015, 2016, people would say it to me. It's not a new comment, but most recently, in the last kind of 5-6 years, where my physique has really changed, and it's more the conditioning. So if I've had 12 years worth of DEXA, Steve, and over 12 years, guess how much muscle I've put on in total? 4.8 kilos. From my first ever DEXA 12 years ago to my most recent DEXA this year, 4.8 kilos, because I gain and I lose every time I get ready for a show. And someone said to me, well, you'd be losing muscle. I'm like, I do. I literally add a little and then I lose a little. And that's every year how it looks. But structurally, it looks different, because if you look at my fat loss every year, year to year, I get that little bit more conditioned. So that little bit more muscle mass, and I'm talking little bit, and that little bit more loss of fat, it freaking makes a difference. It really does. So it's so hard. Like I said, you can't convince those who don't want to be convinced. But I can certainly say I know who I am. But it still doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And yeah, I think, for my whole competitive career, I will absolutely stay natural. I don't even take, someone said to take a peptide for my disc injuries. And I said to my partner, well, but then I'm not natural. Then I'm considered not natural. So like, I would love to take it so that my back doesn't hurt. Like the thing that's stopping me from progressing much faster is my disc injuries. But I'm not considered. So it's like this, I'm in this like world of staying, truthful to myself, but then taking the backseat of like my progression, which is an interesting thing to kind of explore, especially as I get older. I'm 35, but I feel like I'm just starting to get really good. And it's interesting, when we were talking just before, you said, oh, the first 10 pounds came off so easy. The last is the hardest. It's opposite for me. The first, I generally only have to lose about 5 or 6 kilos, because I stay within 10 kilos, but mostly 8 kilos of my stage weight. So I really don't have that much fat to lose. And the first couple of kilos, I'm like, oh, when is it going to change? This feels like nothing. And then the last couple, it just strips off, and I often go a little bit too far, and then I have to pull myself back. So it's interesting. It's probably very different from guys to girls maybe, but I've just been doing this for a really long time. And you'd hope, Steve, that I've gotten a little bit better at it every single year.
Yeah, I think that the discussion is very relatable, and I think probably a lot of naturals be listening over, like, if you do have a friend or you see someone like a very good natural go enhanced, and your mind is blown at the results. But it's often looked at with rose-tinted spectacles, because it's like you say, you only see the outside. You see the performance gains, you see the physique change. You don't know what's going on internally. They might not even know what's going on internally. It's something I'm very ignorant to, but it's the same with me. It's like I can get everything out of the natural side of the sport that if I went enhanced, it would just be the same, but enhanced with the risks. I don't think the fact that I'd have to buy bigger clothes and my calves would be bigger, I'd quite like that. I'd like those to be like quite ginormous. That'd be quite nice. But like just being a bigger individual day to day, I think it would quickly become normal again. And it's just like, oh, so now I want to be as big as that guy. So then it was just progression of taking more potentially, and the risks associated with that again. And I'm just like, I don't know what it would bring versus staying natural. Probably like some small benefits to business maybe, because you look freaky or what have you, but is that worth the kind of downsides there? So it's just never taken me. And I think at this point, probably similar to you, like if I was going to have done it, it needed to have been 5 years ago or so. Like it's kind of, we're to the point of getting to our peak natural career, and I don't know how long that will, hopefully it lasts for a while, but it just, it doesn't appeal to me anymore. It's just not something I want to go down. But something else you mentioned there is the progress is really slow. I've had comments recently where people are like, oh, you've exploded. And I'm like, I don't think I have at all. Actually, my progress is
You know how hard I'm working.
it's kind of been relatively linearly slow and probably slowing down a bit. Unfortunately, I like to think that it hasn't, because I just want to, like, similar to you, it's just like, hey, I don't want self-limiting beliefs. I want to grow as much as possible. But I think when you get a step above average and what is a trained physique average, it just looks that much more impressive. So every pound above what is like a natural average physique, you just look more and more impressive. So for you, especially as a female, because not as many women are into the sport, and especially getting as lean as what you are, and there's not as many people doing it competitively, I can totally see why people are like, I don't know, because you are that much more kind of quote unquote special and rare in that sense. So I totally see that people are kind of shocked by it, but I think people, again, it comes back to comments online where people don't realize the detriment to the person on the other side. And I just think it's not nice. And I don't know if this is just my kind of naivety in some way, but I just take people's like word. Like, I'm just like, if you have no other way of saying about it, and we know there are elites within the space in terms of genetic elites, like there's basketball players that are like 6'5" plus. You're not like accusing all of those of having whatever, the height extension surgery or what have you. You're just like, oh yeah, you were born to be a basketball player. It's like you were born to be this very kind of muscular. And it sounds like also for you, as opposed to maybe other females, you find being leaner something a little bit easier to sustain.
Yeah, like I don't know, you know, it's like we talk about my mum. My mum is still so lean. Like, she's in her 60s, she's 66. Like, it's, I don't know, like, I'm just like I said, I track my nutrition all the time. That's my ball and chain. I laugh that I'm vain, because I like to look a certain way. Like right now, I'm, in my eyes, not considered lean, but to other people, I'm still considered lean. But I can get super, super lean. And like I said, I find it really easy, and I can also stay there. But there was just no way I could be where I'm at now. Like, I don't think I could have done that 10 years ago. I hadn't built the systems in terms of like my nutrition. I hadn't been under the bar enough. Like, I hadn't got the muscle maturity yet. I really had to earn, and this is what I love about muscle maturity and also training age, is that you have to earn that. You have to earn the ability to do that. And I've essentially been an athlete my whole life. Like, I had abs when I was a kid. I was super muscly when I was a child because I did 32 hours a week of training. Like, I remember just having like full on abs, a little bum, like, you know, muscly shoulders. And then I got into high school and I started doing sport. And then after anorexia, I started weight training. Like, I kind of just like, what is my body meant to do? And again, I'm a hard worker. All my friends who train with me are Sebastian Oreb, Eugene Teo. Who else would you know? I mean, like Lane. Did you say
Jackson Pios? Or did you already say Jackson?
No, Jackson, Eugene. They're just like, you don't have an off button. Like, you just train to failure all the time. And while that's not always great, like, yeah, I do like to train really hard, but I also know how to recover now. And I also eat a lot of food. And so just as we teach our clients, just as we teach and educate people, like, that's got to do something, you know, when it's repeated enough times. And like I said, people greatly underestimate what they can achieve if they apply nutrition and training. Like, we have so much potential. We just don't do it the right way. And we think it's something else. And like I said, when you get natural athletes that turn enhanced, it's insane. It is mind-blowing. But then it's also so great to see that we have some really amazing natural athletes out there as well, doing some great things. And I think we need more of them.
Yeah, and my mind is blown when I see someone like Brian DaCosta. He just won WNBF Worlds, the overall there as a pro bodybuilder. And I think he's a couple of inches shorter than me, and his stage weight is like my off-season weight. And I'm just like, my God, this guy. And then he posts some of his training, and I'm just like, wow, that amount of volume would just completely crush me. It's the people on bell curves I'm likely much closer to average. I don't think I'm this genetic elite guy. I think that's quite obvious. And I think people, when they see someone who's that good, they're just like, how could that be? It's like, well, there's Michael Jordans for a reason. Like there's these very special people who can produce like incredible results. And yeah, I think people limit themselves too. And they think, oh, anyone kind of at that point is doing something that I'm not. And so anyway, I think it's unfortunate because it discounts some of the work that's gone in on your end. And also it accuses people of being liars and things. And that has other consequences outside of just their physique. It's the person they are.
I think like outside of my own experience, I think what it does, which I feel is actually even more detrimental, is it limits people on letting them go down the path themselves. It limits people's, belief that they can do great things naturally. If everyone's always telling you, no, it can't be done, no, you can only do that enhanced, then it just robs that person automatically of trying to do it themselves, of putting in the work and seeing it through in the long game. And so outside of my own experience, I'm like, stop robbing other people, because you hear it all the time, especially from enhanced coaches telling their clients, particularly female, no, that's not done naturally. It's like, no, it is, but it's just not done in a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5. Like, actually, you do see some freaks that do it a lot quicker than I did, but that wasn't me, right? And so I always say, it's taken me, I always share how long it's taken me, which is not sexy, like at all. But I'm literally telling you, like, the reason I'm here now is because I put in so much work for so long and I earned that.
It's funny. I used to undersell how long I'd been training when I first was sharing physique photos. So I was like, I want to make people think that my progress has been like better. Whereas, so like I look this way, but I'm going to say I trained 2 years, whereas actually I'd train maybe 5, because I was like, I'm kind of embarrassed. I've only made this much progress in 5 years. Whereas now I'm like, it's been over 15 years. Like, I'm just like, and I'm kind of proud that it's just taken me forever to get to this point, and that's fine.
But you played the long game for sure. Yeah.
Hattie, I could keep talking to you for hours, and I'm sure I'll bring you back onto the show. It's been great having you on, and I think people will have really enjoyed hearing, essentially just talking through almost like a bit of a backstory to where you are now. And it's been kind of obviously a very expedited discussion, but I think so many valuable insights and takeaways. I think you speak so well from a point of experience too. So thank you so much for taking the time of coming on here. And if people want to keep up to date with you, they know not to go to TikTok, but where should they head?
Just on Instagram, Hattie Boydle. That's where you'll be able to find me.
Amazing. I'll make sure that's linked in the description as well. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.